Well, welcome everyone. Let me get some things out of the way here. It's 7 o'clock, Tuesday, April 10th, 2018. We're in the Sierra Room of the Community Center. It is the time, date, and place for the school board meeting of the Carson City School District. We'll begin this evening's meeting with the flag salute, and Trustee Carney, would you lead us in the flag salute?
Please join me for the flag salute. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
So moved.
Motion and a second. Any comments or concerns from the public? Seeing none, in favor?
Aye.
Okay, motion carries. We're going on to agenda item number 3, but I just want to say it's nice to see all of you people here. This is sometimes we have one or two, and this is nice. So thank you for being here. Okay, Mr. Stokes, Superintendent's report.
Thank you, Mr. President, members of the board. As you've recognized, we have a number of special students, staff members, and their families here with us this evening. We are anxious to hear about some of their latest activities. Recently, I know many of these students participated in a state-level competition. And I'd like to first begin by inviting Mr. Charlie Mann, who is our teacher, our instructor for our Future Farmers of America. And we'd like to have him come up and talk a little bit about the programs that his students were involved in, and then certainly introduce the students that are here tonight.
Thank you, Superintendent Stokes.
Okay, before you begin,
Yes.
if there are any parents who want to take photos, you can come up behind us and take photos of the students here. So.
I'm sorry. Even mine? Okay. I'm like, they're not here. Well, thank you, Superintendent Stokes, President Sorzik, and members of the board. So as stated earlier, my name is Charles Mann, and I've been the agricultural science teacher at Carson High School for the past 5 years. And our FFA program, which used to be Future Farmers of America, has been in existence for the last 7 years at our high school. So for time's sake, I do have a list of all the other awards that we received I was going to give to you, Ms. Kima. And I do have our first place team, again, just for the time's sake. And this year, our nursery landscape team placed first place overall in the state. For FFA, we're only able to send our first place teams to the National FFA Convention in October in Indianapolis, Indiana. So at this time, I'm going to let these two students come up and talk about their event and how they did. And then if there is time, I will also, if you allow me, to just explain all the other awards that we received this past state convention.
Hello, my name is Maritza Filson. I competed for nursery landscape. So it's a difficult competition. There's a common knowledge test about different nursery marketing and how to run a nursery. There's a plant identification portion where we have to identify 150 different plants. And then there's also verbal and written customer assistance. And what else? Then there's team skills. Yeah.
Before you go away, just want to ask you some questions. Okay, it sounds like there's a lot involved.
Yeah.
Did you do this yourself with Mr. Mann, or was there community partners, or how did you reach out for help, or how did this happen?
Yes, so the Greenhouse Garden Center with Mr. Ruff, he was our coach. He taught us all the different plants and how to run a nursery. But for the most part, it was mostly student organization. We just kind of met together and we kind of organized when we'll be practicing together. Yeah.
So what did you do at the event? Did you have to place things in certain ways or just identify, or how'd that work?
So we got up around 8 a.m. and we spent about 6 hours at a nursery. So we had identified 50 different plants where they'll lay out plants and we'll just have to identify them. And then there's a team skills portions where we have to go through a bunch of different things that they do at nursery. We had to repair PVC pipe. We had to operate a chainsaw and a weed whacker. And we also had to lay out a specific nursery plan.
Wow.
And then,
Well, thank you. And don't go away, we'll probably has another question.
okay.
Hello, my name is Connor Arnold. I also competed on the nursery landscape team with Maritza and two others. The nursery landscape team was amazing. The CD consists of testing common plant knowledge that I guess isn't really common, but for us it is. We put in a lot of work to get this far. We were working through schedules that didn't really want to work with us. It was great that we got this far.
Before you leave, how did you involve technology in this event? I mean, were you able to use technology at the event?
Originally, one of the team events was going to be designing a large landscape area, which the main technology there would be a sprinkler control box. But unfortunately, that area of the competition was cut due to time constraints.
As well.
Judges as well. The other technology we used was a symbol calculator during the common knowledge test.
So,
Yeah.
if I may add, at nationals they'll actually be using surveying equipment, so up-to-date technology with the laser surveying. Some of the other skills that they will be tested at the national convention, they'll be assigned 10 out of the 20, and then at nationals they'll find out 5 of them. One of them is actually laying down pavers. So they will actually have to do all the math, calculate the slope, be able to lay out all the pavers, use the laser surveying equipment, traditional, modern, as well as the older tech or the past technology of just using the eyepiece to be able to use the 2 different type of sticks for the surveying measurements. They would then also lay out other plans where they do have to do automated or irrigation systems and be able to have those digital electronic customer complaints, so that then they're able to help those customers with a lawn issue, any ornamental horticultural plants, so that then they're able to make sure that those customers are able to be satisfied with their product or with their services.
So these are skills, abilities, and knowledges that you can use beyond graduation, right? You can use, these are life skills.
Yes, they are.
Okay. Go ahead.
I can tell you they are life skills. Our office, some of our folks do exactly that. Our surveyors don't just survey property corners and things like that. We have larger clients that have nursery areas, landscape, plants landscaped, so, paver design, things like that. So, yeah, what you're learning is actually real hands-on stuff that people do. So, it's a really good experience, so good for you.
Any other questions, comments from the board?
I would just say good job. Congratulations.
Thank you.
So, do I have enough time to list off the other ones real quick? All right, so we also placed 3rd place team overall in milk quality and products, where they had to identify different cheeses, look at all the different defects within the cheese production and milk production, as well as analyze data to do a team presentation as if they were working for the state and their milk lab to be able to make sure that all of our milk is satisfactory for us to ingest. We received Best Dressed Chapter, which means that we were the most professional chapter in this state. We had 2nd high individual in nursery landscape, who was Hayden Story, 3rd high individual in nursery landscape, which is Alexandra Knowlton, and 3rd high individual in poultry evaluation, which was Mackenzie Meza. With those high individuals, they cannot go back to nationals. They have to be part of a 4-person team. So those ones are not able to continue on. We also have the new 2018-2019 Nevada FFA State Treasurer, who is Hayden Story. We had 4 students receive their Nevada FFA State degree, Whitney Bybee, Jose Cazares, Katie Cullen, and Maritza Filson. With that, they had to either invest $2,000 into their project as well as earn $2,000, be able to work 600 unpaid hours in their supervised agricultural experience, or do a combination of the two. And the last one, The Agricultural Education Teacher of the Year, I was named that this past year, so I was able to receive my award at the Nevada FFA State Convention. So those are all the awards and accolades that we were able to receive this year.
Well, first of all, congratulations on that last award. I mean, that's really, it's special. And for the students, all your students, congratulations to all of them. But I think, importantly is, Mr. Mann, you've taken the time to give guidance to let these kids go way beyond. So thank you very much for that.
Thank you.
Any additional comments?
No, great job.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Oh, okay. Thank you.
Mr. President, members of the board, next I would like to invite Mr. Frank Sakalarias and Mrs. Kelly Gustafson, who are our HOSA advisors at Carson High School, to come forward, and they will introduce their HOSA students.
Thank you, Mr. Stokes, and they get to introduce themselves. There's too many of them. I'll just be the first to say that. Mr. Swerzik, members of the board, thank you for allowing us to be here to share with you tonight our students' achievements at their state HOSA conference this year. We took 115 students to state, of which we qualified 52 of those to nationals. Nationals will take place in Dallas, Texas this year, and will take place from June 30th June 26th until June 30th. Most of those students who have qualified on, or many of those students who qualified on, are seniors, so they will have graduated, and they will still be attending with us. A lot of our students continue to come back. Some of the accomplishments that our chapter received: we were the largest chapter in the state, again by far. We have over 350 members. I think the next largest chapter is only 240, 230, something like that. We have over 100% membership in our organization at school. It's an award we get, so we get a little gold plaque that goes on our perpetual plaque that we keep at the school. We have one of the events that our students compete in is an event called the Healthcare Issues Exam, and that exam is an event that the students take a test on current health issues going on in the world today. There's really not a whole lot we do teaching-wise to teach them or to help guide them to that test. It's simply paying attention to the world you live in, paying attention to the news, paying attention to what's going on in healthcare around you. 30 students from Nevada HOSA qualifies 30 students to nationals in that. We qualified 14 of those students. So along with being one of the largest chapters, I think our students do a good job of paying attention to what's going on in the world. One of the other things, Nevada HOSA gives out a scholarship. It's called the Linda Lopez Memorial Scholarship. That scholarship is thought I'd get through it.
Every year.
That scholarship, my family does in honor of my mother-in-law, who passed away from pancreatic cancer, and was a very big supporter of students and their activities, and so we chose to honor her in that way. And this year the recipient was one of our own. Hannah Golick received that award. It's a very special honor for me personally to give that to her, being a personal family friend, and having Hannah, having grown up around Linda and our family. So that being said, I think I'm going to ask our students to come up and give you their name and the event they competed in, and then we will go from there if that's okay, unless you want to ask questions before they come up.
We'll have questions. Just have them come up.
Okay, perfect. So if you guys come around and line up and just come on up. I'm not doing this.
I would go that way.
I guess go around.
I'm short, so I have to. Okay, I'm Hannah Golick. This is my partner.
Hi, my name's Jennifer Arts.
We competed in public health this year at state, and what that event is every year they choose a topic that usually relates to a different health issue that they see is going on in the world. And this year the topic was teen dating violence. So basically what we did for our competition is we created a presentation that we prepared before going to state on the topic. It was a presentation that we would give to peers or adults or anyone that needs to know about the topic, teen dating violence. So we created a presentation, and we gave our presentation It included just we actually created a board that had information about teen dating violence. And besides our board, which I think really helped us, was we did a role play in which we had another partner, Sydney Lloyd. She also qualified with us, and she played the victim of teen dating violence, and we pretended like we were her friends and helping her get through that situation. So we placed second in the state for public health.
Before you go on, again, parents, if you want to take photos, you can come up behind the board here and take. Okay.
I also got recognized for Host Happenings at State, which is just like a newsletter that I created for our chapter throughout the school, which contained information about like our advisors, like just everything we've done throughout the year and stuff like that.
Okay, for the topic matter, did you reach out to the community for assistance, or how did you get the data for a presentation?
For our presentation, we didn't actually reach out to anyone in the community. We used online resources and information just because they mostly had statistics and had done studies. So we actually didn't reach out to the community, even though I'm sure the community would have been more than willing to help us.
Now, for your presentation, it sounds like a pretty serious topic. Are you able to share with your students here at the high school?
Our presentation? Yeah, our presentation, the topic is like meant to be given to students. So actually before we left, we were supposed to give it to students, but we had a snow day. It was meant to be given to students to inform them. So yes, it is appropriate for students, and we actually created a flyer that we would have given to the students for them to take with them after our presentation. Any other questions?
Well, good job. Any questions, comments? Thank you so very much.
Thank you.
Okay.
Hi, I'm Tyler Crisp. I competed in a healthy lifestyle, and my goal was to walk 10,000 steps a day. For a healthy lifestyle, you start out by taking a test on just like general healthy habits for a healthy life. And if you pass the test, then you have to present a portfolio you made over several months trying to complete your goal with different statistics. And I got second in state.
Good. Congratulations on that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Nathan Smothers. I also competed in a healthy lifestyle. My goal was to lose a pound every week by doing like basketball drills and working out. I got fourth in my event. That's it.
Hi, my name's Emma McCoy, and I competed in a health career display board. And my partner who couldn't make it today was Jenna Cornigan, and our project was on a space psychologist, and we placed fourth.
Hi, I'm Mackenzie Meza. I competed in veterinary medicine, and I placed fifth.
Hi, my name is Isela Rodriguez, and I qualified in Health Career Issues exam. Hi, I'm Fiona McDonald, and I qualified for Healthcare Issues exam.
Hi, I'm Gabriela Fernandez.
And I am Jaden Shepard, and our other partners who are not here are Caitlin Marsh and Anthony McMenemy.
And we got fifth place in Hosapal.
Hi, my name is Selena Hernandez.
I'm Savannah Sharp.
I'm Leslie Sanchez.
Rochelle Dominguez Hernandez.
And I'm Maria Juarez, and we had an extra partner named Alize Gonzalez who couldn't make it today. We competed in public health, and our topic was teen dating violence. Thank you. Oh, we placed fifth. Hello, I'm Zalali Preciado, and I qualified in the Healthcare Issues exam.
Hello, my name is Haley Garver, and I competed in veterinary science, and I placed second.
Hi, I'm Crystal Vargas.
And I'm Michaela Hernandez. We also had another person on our team who couldn't make it today.
We placed first in MRC partnership. Thank you.
Thank you.
Place first in what?
MRC partnership.
And what did you have to do?
We had to establish a partnership with the Western Nevada MRC in order to promote the health of our community.
So, who did you work with, or what?
We worked with the unit leader, Catherine Dew. MRC stands for Medical Reserve Corps.
Okay, so there were members of the community that did help you.
Yes.
And you received second place?
First.
Yeah.
Thank you.
My name is Abigail Callan, and this is Jasmine Riediger. We placed second in health education, focusing on the topic of nutrition and the food pyramid.
We taught about 25 students at Seeliger Elementary, once again on the topic of the food pyramid and nutrition. Our event was pretty much us teaching a class about our chosen topic related to health. The instructions were very vague. We placed second, and we had to make a portfolio stating our lesson outline, lesson plan, etc. Then we presented that portfolio to the judges along with a presentation that stated our choice for why we chose to do that portfolio and the presentation the way we did.
And your names again?
Jasmine Riediger and Abigail Cowan.
And Jasmine, you were here not long ago.
Yes, sir.
Okay, well, thank you for what you did. That's good.
All right, thank you.
Hi, my name is Jacob Carlson.
And I'm Ethan Bisey, and we placed fourth in public health.
We had a couple other members with us, but they couldn't make it today. That is Lucas Van Brau, Garrett Clampett, and Evan Vazuzzi.
Yeah.
So, in public health, what was your specialty?
So, everybody who presented their presentation in public health had to do the same guidelines, which was teen dating violence. That was the subject. So basically, we're supposed to outreach to the community, one of the classes at Carson High School, but again, the snow day pushed that back. So we are still going to do that before we go to nationals, so we can still qualify. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Lana Joy Aquino, and I did the extemporaneous health poster and got first.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Victoria DeFilippi.
And I'm Chloe Marks.
We placed second in CPR and first aid. We first have a knowledge test and then skills where we're put into a scenario like the real world and we have to provide first aid and CPR. Also, this year we had our first middle school chapters, and as part of my senior project, I helped establish the Carson Middle School chapter, and a lot of them actually placed in their event, and hopefully with your guys' support and the school's support we can actually bring them to nationals too.
And I also qualified in the healthcare issues exam.
Well, let me ask you, did the Carson Fire Department help you in this?
They did not, but we definitely have been certified in CPR many times from Frank and Kelly, and that helped us a lot. And then I've also been CPR certified from members in the community before I went to the high school level, so that definitely helped too.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Jasmine Thind, and I placed second in pharmacy science, which is basically the construction of pharmaceuticals.
Okay, well, did you reach out to the community for assistance?
Yeah, I asked a couple of pharmacists to help me.
Okay, good. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Haley Woodward, and I placed fourth in physical therapy.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Sharon Prado Holland. I qualified in the healthcare issues exam.
Hi, I'm Sophia Casiopo. I qualified for nationals in the Outstanding Hosted Chapter event, which is that scrapbook that should be coming around your way. Thank you.
Thank you.
One of the things I wanted to say, Mr. Swerzik, is I heard the question a lot. Did they reach out to the community to get out in the community? One of the things we do is our students are practicing. We kind of put them on their own. They pick their own event. We don't tell them what events to choose to compete in. We completely leave that up to them. Then what we ask is we ask them to go out and meet at least 3 to 4 times with somebody in the community in that profession, whatever it is. So if they're nurses or they're doing nurse assist, we try and match them with the nurse, or physical therapy, we try to get them with the physical therapist in town. Things of that nature. And we give them the way we do this is they come to us and say, okay, this is what I want to do. We say, okay, here is a list of people you can contact, and we allow the students to make that contact up front. It's one of the things that we feel they need to learn being in the profession, and just being a professional. It's something you have to do as far as our employability skills go, is learning how to do that. And so we very much encourage our students to do that on their own.
Well, a great big thank you. Would you like? No.
I'm up here for moral support.
This is my job. She does other stuff.
Yeah.
We'll readily admit that.
It's a great thank you to both of you, though. Again, to provide the guidance. Just to the students going forward, just listening, just the presentation skills, and it's pretty substantive matters, subjects here. It's things they'll take with them, though, beyond school. So thank you for taking the time to do that, and thank you for being the largest HOSA group in the state. That's pretty impressive. So,
thank you.
I was just going to, again, thanks for everything both of you do. HOSA's always been a great club on campus, and it represents Carson very well. And I think the students, it grows every year, which is nice to see. But I also just wanted to thank you too, because that's a big task, taking 115 kids anywhere. And, as a parent to one of the kids, thanks for taking such great care of them.
Yeah. You're welcome. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Mr. President, members of the board, from Pioneer High School, we also have a chapter of HOSA, and I'd like to next turn to Mr. Don Bland, who is the advisor for the HOSA chapter at Pioneer High School. Welcome. Thank you for being here.
Good evening, Mr. Swarzak, members of the board, esteemed administrators. Thank you for the opportunity to be here again. Pioneer had a chapter of 10 this year, and let me start off by thanking Mr. Sakalaris and Ms. Gustafson for providing support. They've been kind of the big brother of Pioneer chapter during these first few years of us experiencing HOSA, so I couldn't have done it without their support, and I'd like to appreciate them while I have the chance. Our team of 10 did extremely well this year. Highlights included our chapter president, Ramon Medrano, working with Len Hamer of Physician Select Management to co-present the symposium, The Importance of Electronic Health Records. This is the second year we've been able to do that, have a student presenter, so that was quite an accomplishment. We had our own Shane Beauford, you all are familiar with. He participated in medical assisting and took gold medal. And then we had the team of Thaniqua Williard, Monica Reyes, and Gabby Matthews, who participated in health education, and they took a bronze medal. So out of our team of 10, we had 4 medals. Our chapter president was able to deliver a symposium, and we did extremely well.
Very good. Are any of your students here?
We have one. Most of them are paying the bills tonight. So we have one, Thaniqua Willard. She's working on speaking here in front of the board, and we'll continue to do that. But we appreciate the opportunity.
Well, Don, thank you very much, and thank you, being the teacher of the year for last year. You're keeping things going in a great direction. So thank you.
I'm proud of these kids. They had the opportunity, and they worked really hard, and they seized it. So thank you.
Mr. President, members of the board, next I'd like to invite Mr. Bill Zabelski, who is our band maestro at Carson High School. He and his students have also accomplished a great feat, and I would like to invite Mr. Zabelski forward to talk a little bit about that. Mr. Zabelski.
Thank you very much for inviting us to the meeting. I appreciate it. I'd like to thank our sponsors, Battleborn Ammunition and Nevada Style Real Estate. And on the back, we have Greater Nevada Credit Union for purchasing our uniform shirts when we weren't in uniform. It was quite the feat to get accepted into the parade, and the kids did that by a fantastic season in October, a competition season, and we were accepted, and that's all we asked for. And to know that we finished second in the parade was quite an accomplishment. So I'll let them speak on that. Thank you.
My name is Tobias Ariola, and I was a drum major for the 2017-2018 marching band. And going to the Chinese New Year's parade was really fun, because usually marching band ends in like beginning of November, right? Ends in the beginning of November, and that's about all we see of marching band, and then it's just goodbye. But when Mr. Zabelski said that he was sending in the recording of us to see if we can get into the Chinese New Year's parade, everyone got excited because it's something new. And to be honest, none of us even like expected to place, because it's not what we went for. We went for the to enjoy it, and when we figured out we got second place, we were both surprised and excited.
Well, let me ask you a question here. You know, with that, I mean, here you are, a marching band. I mean, this is something special in itself. You know, to place second, how much does imagination come into this? I mean, you don't do things like, you know, like 1, 2, 3. I mean, there's a flow that goes on to this that is something beyond. How does that happen?
Like, how do we place that? Like, honestly, how do we place second? Or?
Well, yeah. I mean, what did you use? Do you?
Well, it took. It was a whole season of work where we actually. This is all leadership back here, where they actually handled their sections, which was about like 15 or 10 to 20 members, and then these two actually had like half of the band in their section. It's just incredible. It was like 50 kids in their section, and they would teach them. We would teach them how to march. We taught them how to properly march while playing, which is really important. And we learned a special parade routine for the parade itself, because we didn't just want to be, you know, a parade. It's just forward. That's it. There's not much to it. So we learned a special parade routine where we added special Zabelski moves in order to make it interesting. And yeah, they were like last minute, and it was because of the help of these people back here, which is the leadership of the marching band. We were able to like successfully teach the marching band how to do this, and we were able to get second, which again, I don't think any of us expected to place. And we didn't even realize that there was like I didn't necessarily realize that we were going to get like an actual placement, that we were actually being like judged that way. I just was excited to go, and I was excited to participate. So when I found out we got second, it was news to me. So.
Well, second is pretty special when you're in this parade in San Francisco.
Oh, yeah.
So. Students.
My name is Joey Calderon, and I was, as Toby said, one of the section leaders of one of the biggest sections. And to address your earlier question about what goes into getting second place, in our classroom there are 3 big words stapled to the wall right in front of in the room, and those words are work ethic, passion, and accountability. And I think passion is the most important one, but when these 3 powerful things combine and work together, amazing things will happen. And I think that's what happens throughout our field season and what happened in the parade, because we just were able to pull those three things together and make them all work and fit, and those are skills that we'll carry throughout our whole lives.
Thank you. That's well said.
Hi, my name is Luis Cabrera, and I was color guard captain this past year. And we do a series of spinning flags, sabers, and rifles. And we had a really good season this year. We had 8 members in the marching season, and for the parade, we were only able to take 4. But and what happened was that day, 2 of the our members didn't know their routine, and with the help of our amazing advisor, Emma Baglin, she was able to work something up, and we did amazing. We looked really good. We were all together, and yeah, I just would like to thank Emma Baglin, and thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, my name is Madeline Eustace, and I was the section leader for the drum line. And the drum line for the parade learned the same music that everyone else learned, but we also learned a cadence, which is what we play in between to give everyone else a break. So actually, while all the wind players are taking the break, drumline is still playing. So it was, when we found out we got into the parade, we had extra practices after school that people had to go to, like the whole band. And we also had practices for drumline because we had to learn a whole nother routine or song. So it was amazing that we did so well and we placed second.
Wait, come on forward. Yeah.
Hi, my name is Allison Abbott, and I was the other woodwind section leader. I'm his partner. And as he said, yeah, there were over 30 kids in our section, and that's why there were 2 of us, because it's too many kids for one person to handle. And so, yeah.
So then how many students overall in the band?
There's 90, we took 90.
There was 92 we marched in the fall, and I think we took 75 to the parade.
Yeah.
So hopefully that number will be bigger next year.
Well, any questions, comments from the board here?
No, I'd just say 92 is an impressive number to take anywhere. And when I was in high school, I was in the band and marching band and did parades and all that, so I know what goes into some of that. I was a percussionist, so I understand the cadences and all that. But congratulations. I mean, it takes a lot of work, like you said, you know, the 3 words on the wall, and bringing it all together is important, but also the teamwork and the trust in each other, that while you're doing your job, everybody else is doing theirs. I mean, those are life skills that for any successful project or activity have to all come together. You can't do it all yourself. So congratulations to all of you and to the whole band.
And for the lead man here, how many years have you been doing this?
This is my 5th year.
Well, come to the mic.
This is my 5th year in Carson City. You want to know all together?
Yeah, let's go. How many years before that?
I started teaching in Nevada on March 1st, 1979. So why don't you retire? I don't know. I like it. With a group of kids like this, it's just wonderful. And it's a great place to work, and I just feel very supported by all of you in the superintendent's office and the admin at the high school. It's just a fun thing to do.
Well, it's fun to watch the football games, let me tell you. So,
well, thanks. We try to make it enjoyable.
But no, you've done a good job to keep this many of the students, and just what was said, the 3 words that you've got up there, I mean, that's pretty impressive going forward in life. So,
I thought so.
Okay.
The kids seem to buy into it, so that's what matters.
Okay, all right.
I brainwashed them. I'm just kidding.
Well, thank you for what you do.
Thank you very much.
I just want to say, Luis, I almost didn't recognize you till you introduced yourself. So I think you were probably this high last time I saw you. So it's great to see you're doing so well.
Thank you.
Just want to say congratulations, Mr. Zabelski. I have a percussionist coming your way next year, and it's been my understanding that I think at the elementary schools and the middle schools we've had record numbers. So you're getting a lot of students next year.
Looks good. What my wife says is I have the easiest job musically in the district because all the kids come to me, they know how to play, and so I just wave my arms. So she's probably right.
Well, thank you to the students for what you did. That was special what you did in San Francisco. Second place is, you make us all proud. So thank you.
Mr. President, members of the board, I just have one more announcement. Just a reminder for not only trustees, but also our staff and those who might be watching. Our next regular school board meeting is on April the 24th, and we will honor our Educator of the Year, our Classified Employee of the Year. We're also adding this year Administrator of the Year, and also Health Professional of the Year. Our event will be held at Carson High School in Senator Square, and we will begin at 6 p.m. And that's my report.
Okay, moving on to agenda item number 4, and we have board reports, and we're going to start with Pioneer High School.
Thank you, members of the board. Congratulations to Mr. Bland, who took Ramon Madrano, Jocelyn Morales, Janet Solis, Shane Beauford, Savannah Lavey, Jade Skinador, Melody Stone, Taniqua Williard, Gabrielle Matthews, and Monica Reyes to represent PHS at the HOSA 2018 State Leadership Conference in Reno. Great job on representing Pioneer. All PHS students, this is the final stretch to get your grades up for the year. Please work with your teachers to get all missing work and prepare for finals that will be here soon. Seniors, please stop by the office to purchase your cap and gown if you have not done so already. Friday, April 13th, there will be a Project Discovery Ski Day. Please see Mr. Corbett for information and permission forms. If you are interested in information about the various programs offered at Pioneer High School, please join us on Wednesday, April 18th for an open house and Q&A session from 3 to 4:30 p.m. on our campus. Friday, April 20th, there will be a rock sport climbing day. If interested, please see Mr. Lorian to sign up. Thank you, and this concludes the activities, events, and announcements for Pioneer High School.
Thank you. Stacy.
In case you didn't notice, it was windy. It was a little hard to get out of Vegas and then land in Reno, so I apologize for being late. I was at the National Convention of School Boards in San Antonio, and I'll have a report about that next time. And then an update on Nevada Association of School Boards. Remember that next weekend is the school safety workshop here in Carson on Friday and Saturday. And our June meeting will be a teleconference because we're having trouble finding a place up here to have it. So there will be no professional development in June for the June meeting. So, but we'll be back in September.
Laurel?
For Fritch Elementary School, Mr. Brown wanted me to report that the new hallways are open and they look awesome, and he thinks it's really great to have all 3 buildings connected. And spring map testing will begin next week. And then on a personal note, I'd like to thank the Transportation Department and Cherie Fletcher. My 2nd grader got on the bus on the way home last week, settled in with the Captain Underpants book, and read it all the way back to the bus barn. So thanks to his bus driver for following protocol and checking in, finding him on the bus, still reading his book, and for them making arrangements to get him home because I was picking up the track students at the time. And most importantly, he did finish reading his book as well. So they do a good job, and they had a rough week last week with some other things. So I just want to thank our Transportation Department. That's my report.
And Don?
And I guess ditto on the map testing. And by the way, that's a measure of academic progress testing. I think all the elementary schools will be having it April 16th through the 20th. And Principal Zona and Vice Principal Cowan want to make sure that every child gets to bed early, gets a good breakfast, and is at their best next week.
Fremont Elementary School is embarking on a revitalization of their hallways. So they have it sounds like a great painting project that's going to be starting, and that's displaced some artwork. So they have a list of art projects that students have done over the years that they're trying to locate the owners of the art or families that would like those precious treasures. So if you have a child that attended Fremont, please check that website or contact Fremont Elementary School, and they'll be happy to let you check out what they have available.
It goes back to 1999.
I don't know what Stacy's reporting goes back to 1999. I'm not sure what years it goes back to, but it sounds like pretty extensive. So, and then the other thing I would just like to say is I wanted to thank Mr. Pavlakis, who has joined the Food for Thought Board of Directors. So we have 2 representatives for Food for Thought, which is a great partner for schools and students in this district. So congratulations and thank you, Mike.
3 quick things. One, at Carson High School, I mentioned last meeting, Tesla is accepting applications for seniors interested in working for them. Applications are available in room 104, and they're going to conduct interviews during the April 26th tour of the Tesla facility. Greater Nevada Credit Union is having a contest. It's open to, I believe, everybody at the high school. They're going to be awarding 3 $50 gift cards, so money's always good. I don't know what is involved in this, but you can get information in an entry form at the credit union office at the campus between 7:15 a.m. and 1:30 p.m., and the deadline for submittal is April 30th. And then last, unrelated to that, Parks and Rec. I sit on the Parks and Rec Commission as the school district liaison. There's been a lot of talk going on about combining Parks and Rec and open space. If you know anything about the city, it's all managed under one department anyway, and we've been operating as 2 separate boards. So the city manager has, actually Supervisor Bagwell kind of raised the question and got some input from everybody to see what they thought. The city manager is going to bring it to the Board of Supervisors meeting on April 19th for consideration, and it's not official yet, but those 2 boards could be combined into one board as we move forward. We'll know more about that after the 19th. And that includes my comments.
I just have one thing, and that maybe some of the board members went to this. The Carson High School Performing Arts presented The Secret Garden. I thought it was special. I went to it, and there are a number of people, in the cast and supporting, but we got to give it a little recognition to direction and choreography by Andy Wilkerson, formerly Andy Anderson, musical direction by Andy Sonamaker, and orchestra direction by Dr. Brian Fox. It was special to be there, and again, just recognition to these 3 that guided this whole production. So. Okay, with that, agenda item number 5, association reports. And seeing none. Agenda item number 6, public comment, and I think Rex Jennings wants to come forward. And again, this is just for items that are not on the agenda. And, well, just go on for Rex.
Good evening, Mr. Swerzik, Board, Mr. Stokes, Ms. Cortez. The reason I'm here is I was asked to sub for the welding instructor back in the first part of February because he was out for back surgery. It made me think, with all the, I'll be, however you want to put it, pro-development going on in this town, we need another high school, maybe even make it a junior high school that supports trades, electrical, welding, plumbing, things like that. Because that way these kids have a chance to get a summer job in between school and things like that. And we need them. We need the trades. Robots still don't fix cars. They don't fix your plumbing. They may do some of your surgeries. But otherwise, we need these trades. And with Carson High, so many kids in the welding lab, out of 6 classes, say 25 students per class, at least 5 to 10 of them didn't want to be there. They were put there because all the other electives were full. So you can imagine what that would do to the kids that did want to learn while the other kids were being babysat. So I think we need another high school. Again, maybe make it a junior high / high school, because there's so many kids. I couldn't wait to start working in the wood shop when I was in junior high, because my dad, anytime I looked at these tools, I got whacked. So when I got to school, man, I couldn't wait to get to shop class. I mean, I was lucky. I had the best of both worlds. I was a systems programmer on the state mainframe and a welder mechanic for the Air Guard for 30 years. We need the trades, and it's best to start early. That's all I'll say right now.
No, Rex, hey, thank you for that, and it is something that we probably should be looking at, so.
Yeah. All right, thank you.
Okay, moving on to agenda item number 7, update on the Carson City School District Strategic Plan. Empower Carson City 2022, Goal 3, engage parents and families. And Dan Davis is going to come forward. Before we begin, let me just recognize our new board member-elect, Richard Varner, who is in the audience. So we just want to say hello and welcome. So.
Thanks for having me, President Swarzik, members of the board, Superintendent Stokes. I'm happy to be here to give a brief update for Strategic Plan Goal 3, engaging parents and families. We've had pretty extensive meetings for our community PLCs, lots of engagement from community members there. In your packets, I've provided kind of a working document that we've maintained throughout those meetings, detailing out specific objectives and strategies associated with that goal. Again, this is a working document that we are continually addressing each meeting and of course, looking to achieve a number of those strategies and tactics. Just to make a quick reference, I think I've got a few minutes just to review some of those that we have either accomplished or are pursuing pretty diligently. Objective 3.1, the communications plan, was developed and designed. It was approved by the board, I believe it was last October, November. I can't even remember when I presented. And that has been a huge development in regard to parent engagement. Of course, contained in that communications plan are strategies related to a number of the topics outlined in this document. One of those being the quarterly newsletter that goes out to all parents, employees, students, that basically gives a rundown of all the excellent news and happenings that's going on within the district. So that is a box that we can check off. And again, I would like to emphasize that these are ongoing tactics. Like, we check off the box, but they're constantly being evaluated, and they're continually being updated and applied. So it's almost like when you look at our population of students, you have a first grade teacher, and this is the way Mr. Stokes explained it to me. You have a first grade teacher who has a class, and they focus on that group of students. After a year, those students move on, and it's this continuous cycle. And it's the same thing throughout our entire district. It's a continuous cycle where we're reaching those families, those students, and our efforts are there. But it's almost like we start over each year and out. So that, just understand that from that perspective. With Objective 1, we have a strategy for assessment, Strategy 3.1.1, and that's the annual survey. We do have that prepared. It has not been administered. That survey is contained also in your packet. there are reasons behind. There's always a reason why we haven't done something, and it's within good reason. And there's been a number of surveys done this year so far with accreditation with the high school. There's also a technology survey that was administered at the beginning of the year, and now we're administering another one. We also had APT survey that was recently done. So we're at a pivotal point where we don't want to over inundate our parents and students with questionnaires and surveys, but we still want to maintain the effectiveness of those with the data that we collect. So the new target date for that engagement survey would be October during the parent-teacher conferences. And that was the ideal time. We missed that window these last couple semesters. So, but again, it was within good reason. Strategy, I'm just skipping over 312 to 313. The two-way multilingual communications, technology, print media, social media. There's a number of applications that have been applied for that district communication. We, of course, developed the constant contact email. That's an electronic list service that we can target lists of employees, students, parents. It's a very effective tool in reaching people and getting the appropriate information to the appropriate audiences. And that's been kind of a high point as well this year. Let me just see here. Other high points, of course, would be the under the bullet there, highlight positives by students, schools, and district through public relations. Mr. Stokes asked me for a quick report on within the last year, we've done, I think it was 87 news releases that have gone out. And that's culminating throughout the year. And of course, that's contained as an objective in the communications plan. I think we have a goal, an annual goal of 100, which equates to about 2 releases per week. And those have been tremendously effective. We've got great partners here locally with the news media, with the Nevada Appeal, Carson Now, and had great success as well with broadcast news. So that again is great engagement for parents and families to be informed of things that are happening within the district that are, informative and ongoing, and elements to celebrate. Of course, we recognize the HOSA, FFA, and a number of students here tonight with the marching band. There were 2 releases that I just handed out this evening that I will be distributing tomorrow, acknowledging those. So, let's see. I mentioned that. Skipping down to 3.2, create opportunities for families and schools to engage. This, of course, is dependent on each site administration. There's a number of events that are ongoing that provide that opportunity. To mention a few, recently, Donuts with Dads at Seeliger, the Watchdog programs at the various schools, family literacy nights at Empire, STEAM nights, STEM nights. All of those engaging opportunities provide families to figure out what their child is doing, how they can be more supportive and engaged in what they are trying to accomplish. And I think we will have a more comprehensive report on that for an annual list of opportunities that we provide. Strategy 321, creating an inviting and comfortable atmosphere to greet parents at every site. I think we are in line with that with our single point of entry. Of course, there's always something that we can do at the entrances, in the vestibules, with accurate information, multilingual flyers or posters that are there. And of course, just having a welcoming face that greets everybody. I think that's paramount as you're dropping your student off or picking them up for doctor's appointments. And finally, I'm going to skip down to 323, parent engagement coordinators. We have been in the process throughout the year to employ what are called parent involvement facilitators, and those would be at each site. We have hired, I think, 4 out of 6, one from the high school, one from the middle school that represents both, and then we have 4 out of the 6 from the elementary schools. I think we're missing 2. But that will be tremendous in terms of family engagement with the, what are they called? The APTT, the academic parent-teacher teams going forward. And if you have further questions on those, I know Mrs. Kima is well rehearsed with that. They had their first meeting today as a group. So that being said, I'd like to open it up to questions or thoughts. It's a brief report.
I just want to say, everybody's so busy in our schools that it's really hard to sell the positive stuff that's happening. And so I'm really glad that we have you in this position, because you're able to share this and get the good word out to the community. And I think one of the things we forget is that there's a lot more families without children in our schools and our community than there are that have them.
Yeah.
And I think that you're doing a great help to make the community aware of how great our schools really are. So thank you for that.
Well, and to that point as well, I think there's many untold stories, positive things that are happening. I mean, we don't get the reports of every single field trip that students go out on, or we don't get all these amazing things that are happening. And I'm only privy to what I'm informed of and what people reach out to me from each site. So there's many more things that we're doing that are excellent.
Dan, have we've had, or I've kind of said, and I think it goes without saying, that, engaged parents is really probably one of the most difficult goals we have in the strategic plan for any number of reasons. Have we seen, as we've been doing this for a few years now, actively, an increase in parent involvement at various sites? Or I know, like, we have the survey getting ready to go out and whatnot, but what's our read so far?
I think it's difficult to gauge, because the issue is the definition of parent engagement is so different for each parent. Like, engagement for one parent may be, I read to my kids each night, whereas an engagement to another parent is, I'm at the school volunteering. That's a huge difference in terms of involvement, but how do they define it? And so that's part of the challenge that we have, is helping parents and family members understand what engagement is, and we tried to identify that in the survey, so hopefully we can get some good data back for that.
Thank you.
Out of those parent coordinators, that's just funded through this year though, correct?
They are, and I can call on Ms. Kima for this, but my understanding is the high school coordinators are on the general fund, so they are throughout. But the middle school facilitator is on the shared ELL money, and then the elementary facilitators are the Read by 3 grants. So those will be annual positions or annual funding for those positions.
So we had trouble getting people in these positions at the beginning of the year. Are we going to do something, is there going to be something different that we do for next year so that we can have these full before school starts? Or was it because we didn't get the money in time as usual?
It was the latter. As far as Letisa Servin, she'll continue on at the high school. And Sarah Jennings was added because we found some additional funding in our ELL funding right after the new year. So that was an additional plan that we were looking for funding that occurred at that time. And then with the Read by 3, those grants are due by the end of April, and with the goal of having the information to us by June so that hiring can be completed before fall. And that's part of the reason why we didn't fill all those parent engagement positions is we didn't have our funding until almost through middle of first semester.
And then with our quarterly newsletter, we were talking about it just this week at a couple of the seminars. Is there any way to get that to like our community partners? Because we have their emails. Is there a way to add them to the list?
They are included in the
They are included?
Yeah,
Oh,
they
good.
should be receiving them.
Okay.
If you have additional emails that you want me to add to the list, I can certainly do that.
No, I just want to make sure.
The beauty of the system is it automatically clears out any duplicates. So even if I add in a brand new list of like 40 or 50 people and 30 of the people are already in the system, it'll automatically clear out any duplicates. So if you have a list of folks that we want to include on that, I can add that in easily.
And then I'd just like to publicly thank Mrs. Sarum for her role in this committee. She's really done an extensive job since the beginning, and her and Mrs. Campbell got this objective going at the very first meeting. So they put a lot of work, and I'd like to thank them for all they do.
Well, and thank you for that. I actually spoke with Leanne today, and she had wanted to be here. However, she had scheduled something with her daughter who's getting married, and it was something that was set in stone, and they had trouble meeting. But she has done a tremendous effort in compiling and maintaining this specific goal for quite some time. So her efforts are well appreciated. Anything else?
Yeah. Dan, thank you, and for all the people that came forward with these suggestions. And this is, like you said, it's a compilation from the community PLCs. And a lot of them, I think, are really, for me, important, because our overall goal for this entire school district is student achievement and success in life. And, I look at some of these, such as create the learning guides for elementary grades. I go over to objective 3.2. You got a bullet point here, clear communication. What will my child learn? How will the learning be assessed? And how can I monitor his or her growth? And I look at all these suggestions as parents or families or guardians that want to be almost like co-teachers if they had the information. And my suggestion to you would be to take, what you listed, what's a lot of things have been done, is to go ahead and just prioritize what you and your committee think should be in order of what should be done, and a timeline of when it might be done. Because if I read this correctly and all these suggestions, and we talked about this yesterday, yeah. It's nice to have words on paper, but it'd be great to take the next step. Yeah. And there's realities, but if you could just go through and sort this out with your committee members, with Richard, Sue, Jose, just go through and say, okay, here's what we have done, and here's what we should do next, and just get some timelines and some indicators of when it would be done.
Well, and I know Ms. Sarum and myself, in many of those meetings that we've had, we're very action-oriented, and we are of the opinion, let's not continue to provide additional ideas without getting many of the tasks completed. And so that's top of our mind. It's just, to your point, let's add some timelines. Yeah. With measurable accountabilities to each, who's going to be responsible, who's going to be the lead in ensuring that particular bullet point or that item is going to be actionable, and when is it going to happen. And certainly we'll take that, and we have a meeting with the PIFs, the the PIS, Parent Involvement Facilitators, April 23rd, we're meeting again, and hopefully we'll be able to set a number of those timelines and accountabilities at that time going forward. And then, of course, look at this document and address that as a whole of, this is where we see the direction, these are what we find important, and basically set those parameters like you had mentioned.
And with that in mind, and we'll turn to Richard and see if we can we see you back here in about 3 months just with an update, just on that much, of where we are and where we're going. To me, it's critical here.
Yeah.
If we're going to go with this, truly get the parents involved, there's some bullet points in here that can help with that.
The parent engagement group will be meeting April 23rd to do some work on some planning. It was really exciting today to have all these people in the room. It was so interesting in the fact that they all had the strategic plan. We had it on the agenda to go over that with them, but they came with it. And then the second thing was they already gave me a proposal for a National Parent Involvement Day in November for next year. So I hadn't even met all the faces, and they already came to me with a proposal. I thought, this is going to be a high-functioning team. And they're all slated to attend the next community PLC on May 9th, and then they'll meet once a month to work.
To answer your question, 3 months from now, I believe it was mentioned for the June meeting, there's going to be a more comprehensive report on Goal 3 and where we stand, mainly because there's been a number of things ongoing that we're still culling the data from. One of them being the APTT survey that we just recently got. So we need to review that data and make a more comprehensive report then.
Again, I mean, there's a lot of work that's been done right now. But to me, for a student achievement and success, you got a key element here. And good, we'll see you in June.
Yeah.
Exciting. So thank you for the work.
All right, thank you.
Going on to agenda item number 8, presentation and discussion of CCSD tentative budget for fiscal year 2018-19 for discussion only. AJ?
Good evening, trustees. AJ Fielding for the record. Thanks for having me back. Tonight is our turn to fulfill an obligation of NRS statute that before April, or on April 15th of each year, the district must submit a tentative budget to the Department of Taxation. So the intent of this is to be kind of the first larger overall look at the budget. Obviously, we talk about it in days beforehand or meetings beforehand, but this actually we have to compile the large 70 pages of numbers that were in your packets. So by April 16th this year, that being the Monday after the 15th, we have to submit this to Department of Taxation. This is not something that is for action tonight. It's always a discussion item, the tentative budget. The third Wednesday in May 16th, will be the budget hearing at 5:15 p.m. at the district office. That is where the kind of true final, what we call the original budget, will be presented based upon conversations we had of this document, and if we talk more here at the upcoming meeting, the first meeting in May. Then by June 8th, a final budget must officially be adopted and sent to Department of Taxation and Department of Education. On December 31st, later in the year, each year we do an amended budget. That's our time to true up with what our enrollments really were for the year and changes related to the final financial audit for the district. So, sorry, I forgot it. The slide up. So that's the larger budget timeline that we are following. So again, we're meeting this first obligation of statute. So since the last time we discussed this, this slide, these numbers are the exact same numbers we were looking at previously. So again, in the, I guess, just bigger picture, we're expecting more growth next year. In terms of average daily enrollment, almost about 70 kids of growth. The per pupil amount, while still not known officially, the current estimate in SB 544 is 7193. That does change based upon primarily upon local wealth, so ad valorem tax collections across the state. They do make some slight adjustments to that. So we will hopefully, we've been asking ND and awaiting, I think they're awaiting more information from taxation to give us a final number on that. But these again are you multiply your number of kids by that per pupil amount and you get these numbers. So this is the number we're looking at this year, about $55.5 million generated from the current Nevada plan model. So, I'll point out my error here. What I was hastily trying to do is to erase this note about education savings accounts. As I copy this over from last year, I forgot to delete that little part there after I updated everything. So I do apologize for that. That does not apply anymore. So what we're seeing again, and this has kind of been the story, and I think it's come up several times that we've spoken about what's been happening in the local economy, the Nevada economy. Things are obviously going much better for the economy, and that really is represented by a really large increase in what is projected for local revenues for next year. So that's your local school support tax, government services tax, and ad valorem property taxes. The offset of that then is when you collect more local revenues, the state doesn't give you quite so much. So that's why you see your state revenues decreasing. Again, it's like a teeter-totter, those two things. Due to decreasing enrollment within the local charter schools, what we project as a loss in some of our revenue to pay for resident students that go to charter schools, that is actually down. So I think the original number I had up here was about $430,000. And looking at current numbers at the charter schools where our current residents go, and then the impact, of course, of the closing of Argent, that adjustment has been made to show a little bit less of a loss. What is, again, not represented is how many of those kids, say from Argent, would maybe come to Carson City School District. There are 60 students, and that would make somewhat of an impact, but it's a bit hard to tell at the moment what that would be. Federal and other revenues, I have the same as last year. So altogether, final new revenue is about just over $65 million. On the instructional side, the primary change, nothing really changes. I'll bring up a little bit later one thing within this that does change, but the primary non-staffing cost is, as I presented last time, kind of earmarking $1 million for new curriculum. Again, this would be, we believe, based upon the cycle that we have in place, the last year of a really large set of curriculum purchases. So after that number would come down in future years, and hopefully then we would try to smooth that out more over time. Support costs, which is everything not related to instruction or not directly kids in the classroom, it's about $22.6 million. Transfers to other funds, $8.3 million. And then your total expenses, about $67.3 million. So, and again, this is including that $1 million curriculum purchase. So that is a significant factor within that. And then when you look at currently, we're projecting the ending fund balance for this year, which would be the beginning fund balance for next year, to be about $12.7 million. Including that $1 million curriculum purchase, the deficit would stand for next year at about $2.1 million. And again, when you're in the greater scheme of that large curriculum purchase, that obviously makes a large difference, but that is not necessarily an ongoing expenditure of the district. So if you'd ask me just based upon operations at this time and taking things into all other things into consideration, I would say our operating deficit's really around $1.2 million looking for this year. And it's still tentative. There's still more to learn at this point. So then, your new your ending fund balance at the end of fiscal 19 would then be about $9.5 million, which is about 14.2% of our expenses for the year. So still in a relatively good place. We also, within the tentative budget, historically since I've been here, we're allowed to put in up to, I think it's up to 3% of your total expenditures in as a contingency line item. And so we've had $1 million as a contingency line item for the last 3 years. Again, this is not money that in any way is expected to be spent, but if something significant would come up that we otherwise didn't have enough budget authority to deal with, this would be something I could come to you and specifically request access to it in a really extenuating unknown circumstance that would require it.
So AJ, can I ask you a quick question about that? So at the end of the year, we don't use those funds. Do those go back in for the next year's budget, or so like are we sitting on them, we haven't used them the last few years and we have like $3 million somewhere, you know what I'm saying?
Correct. Yeah, I mean, the way you're thinking of it is exactly right. So it's almost like ultimately any amount of money, if it's not spent, it always ends up back into that general fund balance. It's not otherwise earmarked in any way within that balance that it was formerly a contingency amount, but it does end up back in that pot, yeah. And that's why I think it's really important to point that out, because then you start looking at, well, if you add $1 million in contingency, then you're at 3.1. I have absolutely no expectation that money is going to be spent. I mean, it would really have to be a significant kind of out of right field event for us to even consider bringing that to you. So, major impacting items. The one big one after this was completed and these packets were sent out about an hour later, I found out that we're going to get an extra $160,000 in special education aid. So that, in my mind, that $1.15 million deficit, not including curriculum, goes down to about $1 million. So that's a bonus, because we don't have to transfer quite as much money over to our special education fund. Other considerations for revenues, competitive grants, as you know, state grants, the offerings have grown dramatically over the last 2 biennia. However, a lot of them are competitive. And so where we end up with that, there's quite a bit there that could help support some of the other costs of the general fund, but we really don't know what those are going to look like just yet. Class size reduction funding is still an unknown, and that is a significant chunk of money. And again, that final per pupil amount is still unknown at this point. Of the other large expenditures, and these were pointed out last time, but just to show again, the Cops in Schools program, this year we budgeted $180,000, and we'll expect that to go up to $230,000 next year, and that's the final kind of high point of us taking on half the obligation of that cost. tech replacement, and this is when I talk about fine tuning, we're still working on it, and it really is something that is constantly being worked on by myself and Raymond Medeiros to try to look at these costs over time of all the technology, all the instructional technology we have in the district, and how to continue replacing it hopefully in the most responsible and kind of the as smoothed out a fashion as we can, trying to make those costs as stable as we can over time. And I think that's something that, I mean, obviously it's a really large cost. There's a lot of technology in the district. And Raymond has really been just fabulous in helping, I think, myself and now going into meetings with principals, helping us understand their needs and where this is really going and potentially some savings down the road. My fear for the last couple years was this jumping up to the $1 million range and just sitting there for a long time as an annual expenditure. And I think that there are things coming that will help, as technology costs come down, and the way technology even is being used, there are some things that we can make adjustments on that hopefully will help keep those costs lower than what we're looking at right now. Since last time, some more conversations about staffing, and as of right now, based on populations and entirely at the secondary level, we're looking at needing to hire 7 new teachers. As you know, this year Carson Middle School had a really large bump in its population. And in talking with our district staff and Mr. Sadler and Ms. Crookshanks, looking at their numbers, and they're actually, I would be shocked if they didn't grow larger next year. The 5th grade class in the district is the largest elementary class we have. So their population may still go up next year, and trying to accommodate for that, specifically in their CTE sections, they're going to need 4 new teachers just at Carson Middle School. And looking at Carson High School with their bump in population this year, they are also expecting to grow next year because of the size of the 8th grade class coming in versus the current 12th grade class. They're also going to need some extra teachers for their off their electives. Otherwise, staffing costs. So additional staffing costs, trying to at least get a starting point of estimate of the impact of finalizing negotiations. Of course, that's not over yet, but trying to put a number in there to get a feel for that. The last piece, and what is not considered at all, is simply staff turnover. So we know that each year, due to retirements or sometimes folks leaving their profession, that there is cost savings from there that can easily be hundreds of thousands of dollars. So that obviously is not known quite yet. We do know some at this point, but it really won't be until May, and really even into the summer. I know Jose won't hear some things until just before the school year starts. So there's no consideration at all of any savings from turnover at this point within these numbers.
Jose, do you have a number yet for retirement at this point?
I knew you were going to ask me. Give me a second. I'm punching it up right now. I'm not one of them. I'll tell you that.
Well, AJ, while we're waiting for Jose, when you budget salaries going forward, we're always budgeting full-time equivalent positions, and what salary do you put in? Do you put in if there's an existing person in that position, sure, there's salary, or do you do it at the top, the bottom, or how do you do that?
So this has actually changed quite a bit in the 4 years I've been here. So I've always I had always gone with like a mid-range salary, average benefits. One of the things that was new to me coming here originally, and we've now changed, is that when a new teacher would come in from a different district, especially even if they had experience, we didn't always recognize the full maybe years. It was only up to 5 years. So I adjusted that down to recognize it as really like someone with maybe 2 or 3 years of experience. In this year, in trying to still kind of gauge the impact of that turnover on those folks coming in, at this point, I did the same thing, even though we changed that, how we view that and how we recognize that. And actually, in the larger scheme of what our staffing costs, what I have budgeted for staffing costs versus what is actually coming in, it's actually holding pretty close. It's the closest we've ever been, I guess I would say, from a total staffing budget, I think of approximately $44 million. Right now, I think we're off by about 200,000. So to me, that's in the larger scheme of having 1,000 employees, that's pretty close. So almost worrisomely close. So anyway, but it's something that I'm constantly tracking and looking upon. So, and if that, I think we'll see next year, because I plan on doing the same thing for next year. And if it's not tracking as well next year, then that's certainly an adjustment I'm going to need to make over time. I think realistically, I think the reputation of the school district helps with educators locally. And if folks are frustrated where they're in other places and they look to come here, they may now come with experience and may be a little more expensive than a starting teacher. So it's something that we have to be cognizant of, certainly.
Well, AJ, just so you know, Carrie and Mrs. Kima have been doing the grand tour of prospective employees, specifically from Washoe, coming down. So Carrie and I spoke this morning, and seems like Washoe likes us. Oh, so in your question, Mrs. Wilkie, and this data is about 10 days old, so I'll give you a rough. About 11 teachers are either retiring or resigning, 6 classified staff, and 1 administrator so far. So I expect this to climb, but actually this is low for this time of year. I'm a little scared, only because does this mean we've leveled out, or are they going to grow a little higher as letters of intent come back? So I'm not sure yet. So as Mr. Fueling said, it won't be until about mid-May when I know a little bit more as far as solid numbers, and then anything goes in the summer. It's usually out of love. People move. Sickening, really.
And so one of the things, what's important about that timeline too, is so that with the final budget being due or coming to you on May 16th, as we get near that timeline and those start coming in, I can build in some of those, what does that savings potentially look like into the budget. So I would expect what I come to you with in May will look a little bit better than this, just because I'll be able to account for some of those vacant or savings. The last piece is just some of the other funds. So that's all pretty much general fund, and general fund or other funds impacting the general fund. The adult education and adult education correctional funds, so it's Mr. Santillo's program that he's responsible for, is looking to overall get cut again in the amount of funding that it has. One of the problems, and he is just doing everything he can to try to continue, especially at the prisons, trying to continue some of the programs that he has going there, and it's just becoming incredibly difficult for him to do that with the cuts in funding. If you go back, I think just 10 years, the prison program, I think their funding was like 1.8 or I think it was like $1.8 million. So he's had really significant cuts in that time. Part of the problem is that the number of a lot of this is based off enrollment, and in kind of in the same way that our general funding is. The population of students in Clark County has been escalating so rapidly that they are just soaking up so much of the funds in these programs. So hopefully they're looking to somehow hopefully modify that so that it's not so impactful. This year although it's down, it's not as bad as it has been the last 2 or 3 years. So hopefully we'll be able to still continue to level the offer of programming that we did at least last year there. The state grants, I guess I already kind of spoke to this, but there potentially could be more coming, just depending on competitive nature of things. And there's still some grants we're waiting for some clarification on that we weren't quite sure how the funding turned out the way it did. So the last thing with capital projects, again, a lot of these local revenues are up. So government services tax at this point is up about $80,000 from last year, which originally we were projecting about, I think, $40,000 an increase. So 14.6%. The local school support tax is up about that same amount. So again, just really a lot of growth. At this point, if you look at the capital projects plan on, I think it's the fund is on page 52. The plan itself is on, I think, 53. There's really no changes from anything you've seen before at this point. One of the problems, and obviously we've talked a little bit about building a new school and the Lampa property. We have our bond that is hopefully going to be available to us in a year and a half to start funding that. But because of the escalating costs, it's hard not to think about that entire amount needing to go towards building that really partial school. It's not going to be enough to fund a whole school. And the greater problem I see, and I think the case we need to make in this next session, is that we have a lot more facility square footage to worry about than just one new facility that we want to build. So that is of great concern to me. Mark Hornick and Mark Johnson are working on updating the facilities master plan, looking at the old list of projects and taking into consideration new items that have come up. So there might be some minor modifications to this, but I really don't expect it to change before May when I come back to you. So that really is about it at this point. And again, this is tentative, it's for discussion, and just getting you ready for now the season is truly here of budget.
Okay, questions, comments from the board? Well, yeah, May, we'll have the final, the one that we had to vote on.
Right.
Just going forward, are we looking, with any, we don't know what the composition of the legislature is going to be, but is there any talk with the Department of Education? And I think there's things that we've been given information that you've talked to other school districts that are kind of in the same or similar situations. Any proposals coming forward as a group working with the Department of Education?
So, well, I'll just say that in the meetings that they've had, the CFO meetings and the DSA equity allocation model meetings, there have been some, a lot of it has to do with kind of the math of things and fixing formulas and that sort of thing. But, trying to just relay the impact of this, of what we're seeing. And there have been some, I think, really impassioned pleas to relay that to the legislature, through representatives there from LCB and NDE both, because there are some significant losses in per pupil amounts for a lot of districts that are being discussed. And again, it's just discussion at this point, but it is concerning. I would say that all of the districts are aware, and it is across the board. It seems that, except for maybe a couple minor rurals with some very unique situations, there is just flat out concern about the revenue streams, the size of the revenue streams coming into districts. When you look at what has happened with, like, historically going back, you look at general fund revenues for districts, and back in the 90s and 2000s, they were increasing at, maybe 3 to 4% on average per year. And for the last decade, it's been about 1%. It's just, there hasn't been much growth. When you look at the amount of money being appropriated by the state to meet their share of that Nevada plan obligation. You go back in between the 90s and 2000s, that was increasing it was compounding around like 4 to 5% a year. The last 10 years, it's been about 1% again. So not only kind of what is, it just seems that the state's obligation has not, or their responsibility maybe has not kept up pace with what it used to be, with what it was historically. And I would certainly hope now, and I think there's a feeling that it has to be recognized that now that the economy, it seems to be back, and by local revenues, it very much seems to be that the state should be feeling some of that wealth effect as well, and hopefully that need in K-12 will be recognized, especially with some of the programming that they want to. And there's definitely a desire to expand pre-K programming in the state, but it's not cheap, and schools don't necessarily have the facilities even to do it, even if they could hire the people with grant dollars. Special education. So next 2 Mondays from now, the state hired a company called Augenblick that is conducting a study to evaluate how money is distributed across the state for all sorts of different programs. And this company has done a study of Nevada twice. They're the ones that initially came up with saying that special education students should really be funded at 2 times the DSA rate. And currently we're kind of at 1.5, but there's a limit to it. But anyway, so this panel's going to be meeting, and I'm going to be a part of that, representing as a rural CFO to talk about at least special education funding. But they're also talking about English language learners. They're also talking about students that what they call at risk, qualifying for free and reduced lunch. So I feel like this is one of the better opportunities we have to try to get some of these concerns across. Special education is, the state has given quite a bit into special education over the years, but the fact of the matter is that expenses are just far outstripping what that revenue stream looks like, and in the long run, that's just not sustainable. So, we'll make our case, and hopefully, at least they'll consider that going forward. But I think the biggest piece will be in this next legislative session, just making a push with that information and all of the other things we've learned over the years to try to better, what we can do for our students.
And just to piggyback on that, I got an email from Dr. Canavero today, and NASB will have a designated person on that committee, that funding study work committee. So we'll have pretty good representation.
So that's all I have, Mr. President.
Okay, well, I think we'll just wait for the May 16th meeting, and then we'll have whatever information, and that's reality at that time, and then we can make some decisions. Sure. Okay.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Questions from the audience? No.
Thank you.
Seeing none. Agenda item number 9, discussion and possible action on superintendent's goals for 2018 calendar year.
Thank you, Mr. Swerzik, members of the board. I'd like to maybe walk you through my document and explain some things. I appreciated feedback I got from President Swerzik. This may have been less than easy to follow, and I just wanted to give you an outline as to how I organized my notes. If you look at the document that was in your packets, you'll see that the main topics, the main headings are identified with 1, 2 through 5. And so those general goals are ones that were written last year at about this time. And if you think back to that time, we had available to us information regarding the class of 2016. And so when I was referring to current status, it would go back to that time of class of 2016. For example, in number 1, provide leadership for increasing student performance and academic achievement. A through E were items that were represented by numerical goals. And because, as you know, I'm looking to work through the year 2020, I have put my goals together in such a way that they cover that span of time, and then breaking down into individual years what those numbers may look like. So starting with number 1, item A, the goal is that 90% of all students will graduate from high school on time and at those given percentages. So we started with the class of 2016, and we started with the number of 80.3%. I would just like to report to you that since the time of the writing of this information, the class of 2017 information was reported, and so our district number is actually 83.9%. So looking at the numbers provided for the years 2018 through 2020, we've met, as it were, the goal for 2018. And specifically, our comprehensive high school, Carson High School, has the graduation rate of 93.2%, and our alternative school at Pioneer High School, their graduation rate is 80.88%. But notably, that number is up from barely 50% 2 years ago. And so some tremendous work has been accomplished in the school district, and proud of the work that has been accomplished in our district, but more importantly, proud of the students who are going out into the world to face college and career with good graduation numbers, and certainly good experience as it applies to them being our students. And item B under number 1, the goal is 70% of all 8th grade students will complete and pass Algebra 1. The goal taken, or the current enrollment taken from the class, last year at about this time, we were at, as a school district, at 32%. And for this current school year, the enrollment of our 8th grade students, and this is just a total number counting in both schools, our current number is at 36%. So we're up from 32% from last year's, but we're not quite at that 44.66%. And then within those 36% of our 8th grade students in the first semester, nearly 100% of those students have passed Algebra 1. So that's a great number. In the second semester, where we are currently, our numbers are at 84.5%, and there's still about 7 weeks left in the quarter. And so we'll be able to take a look at our second semester and then obviously compare that against our year's efforts. I also wanted to make mention that because additional work has been gone into just the rigor and the additional programs available in our school district since we started our Race to the Top program, and also since we have been putting more effort and resources into our Gifted and Talented program, we have 7th grade students in our middle schools that are currently enrolled in Algebra 1. In addition, we have 8th grade students who have already completed Algebra 1, and now they're in high school geometry courses as well. So with this additional rigor throughout our system, we're seeing our students coming into their next grade with greater and greater skill sets, and we expect that we will continue to see this number rise over time.
And Richard, you attribute part, if not all of this, is that learner center model, the Race to the Top that you mentioned, with the teachers creating the curriculum, and we get the learning guides and that whole everything, and the data that goes along with it. They're able to pinpoint the troubled areas very quickly and get that support team in to get these kids right up to speed.
Thank you, Mr. President. That's true. I can say that when I first started my career in education, the tracks were pretty much set. It was more convenient for schools to put all their kids in a given curriculum, whereas now we do look at what they come to school ready to do. And if we have a seventh grade student that is beyond what is being offered maybe at even an accelerated rate in seventh grade, and that student has the capacity to go into Algebra 1, we figure out a way to make that happen. And we do that with communication from parents. We do that with the flexibility of staff at the schools. We do that with the understanding from administrators that they're going to take whatever means are needed, even if it's assigning a driver and a school bus to move a student from one location to another so that they can take advantage of a more rigorous class. And so, yes, we're happy that those kinds of things are going on in our school district. And the bottom line is that the students benefit because they have access to that curriculum, and that's really where they are within their academic growth.
It wasn't that long, that many years ago, when it just wasn't, like you said, it wasn't that way.
Yep.
Kids were just held back, in effect.
Yep.
So,
yeah, we're pleased that we're able to do that. And again, I believe that kind of thinking and those kinds of actions will pay off for the district in the long run, and certainly will pay off in the lives of the students as they move into their upper division coursework.
And just a note I'd like to make, in talking with other trustees in different counties throughout the state, there are still some counties that are still working to get 8th grade algebra. They don't offer that at their middle schools. So I think that's a high point of our district that we have progressed that far.
I think we're going to have about 45 7th graders in Algebra 1 next year.
Yeah, these are great numbers, something certainly to be proud of. And hats off to the students. I took Algebra 1 as a 9th grader and, struggled. So the fact that we have students and staff and operational processes in place to accomplish these things, it's a good feeling. I'm proud to be part of that. Item number C and D and E are items that are numbers associated with high stakes tests, and at the current place where we are today, I don't have numbers for those things. So the talking about superintendent's goals and the dates when we actually take these exams and then when we get the results from the exams don't necessarily line up. So I'm really not able to talk there to any degree. But this data is really critical for the school district. For us to be able to take any kind of strides to remediate, to train teachers, to provide instructional support, to look at materials, all those things really are part of using the data that we receive from the students' performance. And so I hope to be able to give you a full accounting of this information either mid-summer or at the end of August when we receive our ACT exams. Okay, and then kind of at the end of each of my numbered goals, I want you folks to know too that when I listed examples of indicators, those were things that when I wrote my goals, I felt like these would be items that you could see in my work. These are things that I would do during my daily and weekly and monthly activities that would represent ways that I would try to work within my job and with my team members to accomplish the items up above. And so I've identified some of those things again in bold that I felt were important for you to know about. And so in order to do some of these extraordinary academic activities, we need to be able to hire, recruit, develop, and retain exceptional personnel in the district. And with the help and the support of the trustees, our staff, Carson City School District is has one of the highest starting salaries, and so that's one of the things that we're able to do to attract teachers to the state. And of course, it was mentioned here tonight that we are also, when we hire someone from another school district, whether it's in our state or out of the state, we recognize all of their years of service. In the past, that wasn't the case here. We accepted up to 5 years, and then we started them at the respective salary schedule start. And so some of these little things, just by virtue of wanting to have those people come and work for us, hey, even if it costs us a little more money, we know we are living in a time when finding high-quality staff and enough of them is a challenge. And so all of these things are helping us in our work. As we look down through those bullets, do you folks have any questions for me with regard to some of the items that have been identified or some of the work that's currently going on?
You know, I just have a question for you, just in light of what you were discussing with the numbers and whatnot. Would it make more sense for you if this was something that was done in, say, like January after your annual evaluation, or even December going forward, or does it work better for you to kind of divide it up like this?
Well, it would seem like that I'm only able to give you kind of half of a report with regard to the data that our students will have accomplished as a result of high-stakes testing. And so really those things happen more in September. That's really when we're going to have that information that's all fully provided. Some of the information comes to us, so it's available about the 5th, well, it goes public, I should say, about the 15th of August, and then our ACT scores come out just after Labor Day. So either way, I can do it, Mr. Walker. Thank you. Item number 2, provide leadership to create bridges between the district and the community. I'm sorry.
I've just got one
Mr.
question.
President, sure, go ahead.
And it has to do with the social workers. That you've got highlighted. Where we're seeking additional funding through Title 4A to provide additional fringe benefits to the social workers. And given the fact that, you know, we're talking about school safety now, and we know the value of the social workers with both the kids and the families. What's the status and what would be the probabilities of maybe going forward, and then they would become employees instead of contractors?
So right now, you know that we have as independent contractors our social workers, so we're funded through grant funding from the state to pay for their contract. We've talked multiple times about making those folks employees, but not, you know, you already have seen that we're expecting a deficit in this budget, and so to have taken the benefits and the cost of PERS and insurance from the general fund to pay that would have been between $350,000 and $400,000. So that would have been additional deficit then to what we showed tonight. So we asked the state, well, you know, this is our intent. We want to have these folks so that they're feeling like they're part of our employee base, that they can qualify for PERS and insurance and the typical fringe benefits, but we don't have the funds to do that. What do you suggest? So we received information from the Department of Ed that a federal grant in Title 4A has available funds that could be earmarked for this purpose. The problem with the grant itself is that it's only for about $3 million. And so our ask for that alone would be about $400,000. So depending on if other school districts apply for that competitive grant, we may or may not receive that full funding. So that's the one thing that's a negative right now. I can tell you though, when the superintendents met with the governor, he specifically named the social worker program as a high priority for his office to support. And so there could be other mechanisms through the legislature that rise to a point where all of the school districts in the state could benefit, because we all face this. I hope that answers some of what your question was.
Then the next bullet. Where we're talking about the learner center model, and you're talking about expanding this to the elementary schools. So where are we now? And this ties in with what Dan is doing on the parent engagement with the learning guides and the whole concept.
Yes.
How far along are we?
I can't really give you an official number, but I can tell you that it is actively being worked on by our implementation specialists at the level of the elementary schools. I don't know, Mrs. Kima, if you have anything you can add to that quantifies it a little more.
So the curriculum work has been completed for math and science, and this was the first year we rolled out new curricular materials for math and science, and the revisions were made on the measurable units of instruction, and the assessments were updated to align with the new materials. With English Language Arts, April 23rd, we will be rolling out the MIUs, the measurable units of instruction, to all of our elementary teachers. We will use the people who've been piloting the MIUs with our ISs to be able to support the other teachers as we roll that out April 23rd. Should you approve the budget in May, there'll be adoption for materials for English Language Arts K-5 in that budgeted amount that Mr. Fielding had for materials. As far as Mastery Connect, we will be rolling that out. We've been attaching it to pilots, and it's kind of been there, but we haven't had the manpower and the strategic plan to be able to roll that out in the elementary school. So that'll be next fall, as well as we will be opening up Infinite Campus for the grade book. We'll be training teachers on that grade book so that we'll be able to give parents access in the elementary level, not first semester. I want to make sure that publicly I say that the parents may not have access first semester until the teachers get up and running with the grade book for Power School. Let's see, so that's what we've been working on with those particular areas. The family engagement folks are now in place. As we mentioned, the academic parent-teacher teams. Those are pretty big initiatives, and just putting together reporting and the reporting pieces together like we did with the data matrix for the secondary. We're in the process of gathering what the summer work will be, so that for our directors and any elementary principals who need to have reports, they're going to be at their fingertips.
Okay, let me go back to just the learning guides. Will they be ready for the next school year? I say this, tying in with what Dan's group is doing, for the parents to be able to see what their kids are learning and how they can help with that process. Will that part be in place?
For math and science, yes, and ELA, they'll be working on it and putting them out to parents as they get them developed next fall.
Thank you, Mr. President. Item number 2. Provide leadership to create bridges between the district and the community. As you heard from Mr. Davis today, I'm one ahead of myself. So item number 2, I contacted Michelle Lewis, and I can see that I need to adjust my number a little bit here. I said that we'd add 10 new business partners each year. Mrs. Lewis indicated that number is right at 100, so I only missed it by a factor of 10. But great job there that's going on, and an important function of this particular goal is that we recently hired a work-based learning coordinator that will continue to develop this work around college and career readiness. We're pretty excited to have her on board with us, and at our first meeting in May, I'll bring her in front of the board and we'll make that official. She'll begin on the 30th of April. Item number 3, leadership to increase communication. Here you heard from Mr. Davis, and it was mentioned, or at least questioned, as to how many folks our quarterly electronic newsletter goes out to. Mr. Davis estimates that number is right at about 16,000. So that's a good number, and really blankets our community in a good way. And of course, as we have new people that come into our system, either as parents of enrolled students or as new partners. That information is pushed out to those folks. He also mentioned that we have 87 press releases, and that's since his employment at about a year ago. And if you've seen the quality of information and the detail, I mean, it really is fun to see all of the things that are available from our district and the good work that is being accomplished here. Okay, I'm going to move on to item number 4, provide leadership to build and maintain district buildings. As you know, and as we've reported to this body regularly, we're working with architects, engineers, and construction companies in association with new and remodeled projects within our school district. Of course, we have just completed the job at Fritz Elementary, which puts that school all under the same roof. Work is soon to begin around the Mark Twain and Fremont Elementary schools, which will increase at least capacity at Fremont Elementary as our community grows and as we have the opportunity to seek additional square footage for the growth that's starting to occur in our community. And of course, we've met multiple times with the developer of the Lampa Ranch project and also with city officials, and feel like that we're in a good place there, other than continuing work with one of our lawmakers to try to take to the legislators and the legislature this year to see if there's another way that we can seek funding for a new school construction, something similar to what was accomplished last legislative session in Washoe County. As you heard Mr. Fueling say again, we just are unable to raise the necessary capital to build a full school. And that's the conditions that most of the rural school districts face. They just can't raise enough money to actually take care of aging facilities and to build new facilities when growth is imminent in the area. Lastly, provide leadership to review and adjust the district's attendance zones. We have not had to work in this area yet, but some work has been accomplished. I know Mr. Fueling has engaged the services of a UNR intern who's working within a software program, and I'm not sure I know the name of that program. ArcGIS. Okay. And it actually allows us to identify every student and where they live within our school district, and then it allows us to work with different designs of attendance zones that would then allow us to build new attendance zones, making or getting the most out of our square footage of each of our buildings. And so that's work that we're doing right now, so that when the time does come that we need to be able to sit down and review that data and make those recommendations, we'll have the information at our fingertips. That'll be a very useful tool, and I appreciate having that. Of course, we continue to meet with citizens and educators in our master plan committee and also in our bond oversight committee, and it's very helpful to have the experience and the wisdom of those folks as we try to best use our taxpayers' school bond dollars. So having made this presentation to you this evening, my question to you would be, are these goals what you would hope to see me having as your superintendent? Are there items here that you would suggest that I modify? And so I turn the time back over to you folks to provide that feedback to me.
Well, let me just make some comments. No, for me, these are very important goals, and I like them just the way they are. With the test scores coming in, we'll be able to evaluate the projections and the actuals as soon as the SBAC testing is over and completed and the ACT. your miss on the number of community partners, you projected 10 and we had close to 100. That's good because people are that indicator means that we have a community willing to help our students in an applied sense with what they're learning in the classroom. And that, I think that's a great indicator. So, for me, these would be just fine the way they are. Now I'll open it up to the board members.
I just want to say, in addition to, like you mentioned, that the test scores are going to kind of show us, that what we're doing is working. I think also the other indicators and successes you talked about are huge. And I think that instead of just looking at the standardized tests, I think it's great we're looking at, the success in algebra and, using our data to track those graduation rates that are growing because, I know that the end-all be-all in education today is those standardized tests, but I think when you work in the schools, there's a lot of ways to measure success, and sometimes those standardized tests miss some of the successes that we get to see with our own eyes and experience that sometimes it takes those tests a while to realize as well.
Well, I think we saw that tonight with the HOSA kids and the FFA. I mean, we're going beyond. That's success in life because all the kids said, yeah, we can use this going forward. That's what we need.
And I think
It's fun to work here. There's a lot of great things happening.
I'm just thinking of the success that Carson High has with the AP exam and their amazingly high pass rates on that. And the Jump Start program that's offered. I know of families that are moving here from out of state that specifically want to go to Carson High because there's so many options there. So while we're looking at test scores, how do we also look at that kind of achievement? Because we're not only graduating really high numbers of kids, but they're graduating prepared to go out in a variety of different things. So I don't know if that would maybe be an additional goal to include as a report is the AP and the options at the secondary level?
Yeah, thank you. That's a good suggestion.
Yeah, I'm glad you mentioned that because that's one thing I was going to mention as a goal. And I think we're seeing it already. This year, we're going to have a WNC Jumpstart graduation class.
We will. That
is exponentially larger than what we had last year. And it'll just continue to grow. And I think when you put all these factors in place, starting from, 8th grade Algebra 1, Mrs. Kima said 7th grade now, some kids taking Algebra 1. I think you put all those things together.
70-something, that's like 3 classes.
Yeah. You put all that together, and I think these test scores slowly start taking care of themselves. So it's truly a combined effort. So no, I think given that, with that one addition maybe, I think for me the goals are good.
Okay, thank you.
One of the things I'm kind of wondering, we're doing all of this work with community partnerships, and I would love a way, and maybe this is something we could get Mr. Davis's help with, but a way to track where these kids go after high school. So those that are employed, what positions are they in? Those that are going to college, are they successful that first semester? I know that's tough. I'm just saying that, we're truly trying to incorporate these community partnerships, and we want to show how we're setting these kids up for success. And I think that if that's possible, it might even have to be voluntary because a lot of that is going to depend on those people getting back to us. Yeah. But I would love to be able to hear the success of our students those first, second, third years in their careers in colleges.
And to that, Mr. Walker, I actually picked up a flyer at the conference that tracks them for 5 years. So
it's a company.
It's an actual company that does it, and so that's what they do. So I'll give you that flyer.
And also a check to operate.
And Mr. Davis is a one-man communications department.
And it took me 5 or 10 years to get him. I don't want to scare him off.
And we have high expectations for Mr. Dan. So
lofty.
Just to add to the presentation, I think another indicator of our public partnership is that every year I sign more variances to come to our district than I sign to leave our district. And the majority of the variances that I sign to leave the district is because maybe a parent is a teacher in Washoe County or in Douglas County or in Lyon County, and they want their children with them in the same school. That happens a lot with elementary, but we sign more variances coming to our district than we do signing to leave. And usually it's job-related for the ones that are leaving.
So AG, that's maybe good news, and maybe not. We've got DSA on one side, we've got facilities on the other. This is an action item. If there are no other comments.
Mr. President, I move that the Carson City School District Board of Trustees approve the superintendent's goals for the 2018 calendar year as submitted.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any comments from the audience? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. Richard, good job.
Thank you, Mr. President. I would just add that I'll come back when these other numbers are available, and we'll have that on a future agenda item.
Richard, if we get this whole student tracking thing after graduation figured out, don't be surprised if you get one like 2023 going, how you doing?
I'd be happy to fill that out during the, maybe with a picture of a big fish, I don't know.
Okay, we're going on to agenda item number 10, approval of the consent agenda.
I move that the Carson City School District Board of Trustees approve the consent agenda as submitted.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any comments from the audience? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries. Agenda item number 11, informational items for discussion only. We have any here that you guys would like to discuss?
I look forward to the next board meeting. That's always a fun one.
Okay, agenda item number 12, request for future agenda items. Any at this time? The only thing is, like, we'll continue to have the strategic plan committees. Dan did a good job. Richard, you did a good job. So next in line, let's go, because we're going to now start tracking this. Anything else?
We still have the legislative one on the docket, right? For maybe the summer, going over the legislative. I can't think.
The new
It's 11 o'clock in
legislation.
my brain right now. The legislative stuff that Dottie sent out, that form, so making sure that we completed what we were supposed to complete in public.
Would you like to go through each one of those, or do you just want us to give us a report of what we've accomplished or still need to do? What do
Either
you?
way, I guess we could do
Okay.
it. I'm not talking about the next meetings, because these are.
Oh, I
but
understand.
During the summer.
Okay.
And I'll think about it, I
Okay.
guess is what I want.
Okay, sure. Yeah, we'll keep that on the back burner.
Okay, any additional public comment? Seeing none, then without objection, we're adjourned.